Hello and welcome back to Your Dog's Not Broken.
And neither are you.
We are nailing this now.
Yeah, we should by now.
I know, really. Only eight
Not,
episodes in.
yeah, it's not
Woohoo!
not that complicated, right? We should be able to nail that on a
I
good
think
day.
that gives everybody a pretty good gauge of where we're at.
Yeah.
Without coffee, my goodness. How have you been?
Good, good. Busy, but can't complain.
Can't
How about you?
complain. Well, I've been okay, but as you know, we had to reschedule this recording because I had a little bit of a weird bout of vertigo. So that's a funny old thing that.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it really just renders you completely paralyzed until it's done with you.
Yeah, joyous.
Oh,
Another midlife joy.
yeah, yeah.
All
They're
right.
endless.
I know. It's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So we've had a caller this week, and I think she has a very relatable problem. And her problem is quite specific, but I think that it could be expanded to a lot of different things. So I'm going to play it and we're
Okay.
going to dig into it. You ready?
Yeah.
Hi, ladies. So I just had a quick question. I have the cutest rescue mix, most perfect dog ever, except every time that he gets wet or muddy in any way, he loves to sprint into my apartment and jump on the couch and roll around to dry himself off. And it's all cute and fun and games until I have to remember to cover up the sofa every time before we go out. I love when at nighttime when we're cuddling and watching TV, he comes up and it's great when he's clean and dry. But yeah, I don't know why he thinks the sofa is a dog towel. So if you could help me with that, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Very relatable call, right? I think we've all been
Oh,
there.
actually, ridiculously relatable because literally just a few days ago, my husband went up and showered when he got home from work because got like super wet and disgusting and cold and muddy at work. He works outside as an arborist.
And he
And
rolled all over
early,
the
of
couch.
course, no, he didn't get off the couch. That would have been really funny.
Oh, what do we do
No,
with husbands that roll all over the
what
couch when
about when
they're
your
all
husband
dirty?
rolls around on
Yeah.
the couch? Dang it, Jason. No, he took a shower and then he came downstairs and the dog was just as muddy and wet, right? Because that was the weather of the day. And it was so funny because she is allowed on the couch, right? We have a leather couch, so I don't care. I just wipe it off like it's fine.
Right.
And so when she
Top
came
tip,
in
by
to
the
say
way, you heard
hi,
it here first.
yeah,
Leather couches or pleather couches, very good for keeping clean from muddy dogs, for
they are.
sure.
You can just wipe them off. It's amazing. But so Early came in to hang out with us on the couch and he built like a wall of like pillows between him and the dog because he was finally so clean and dry that he was like, I don't
Don't
know, I
touch
don't
me.
want to cuddle right now. I was like, come on, Early, and I built it up a little bit and then I cuddled her with me because I was still wearing like yard clothes and whatever. But yeah, it's a thing I think a lot of people can relate to. Is like the dog's like, what? It's normal. Like I don't understand the deal.
Exactly.
They're not aware they're wet and muddy.
And therein lies the massive problem, right? So we don't mind all the cuddling, as the caller said. We don't mind all the cuddling when they are nice and clean and they're fluffy and they smell good. But if they are wet or, they rolled and poop, like our first episode or our second episode,
Oh, right.
then we don't really want them on the couch so much. So my thinking really is that the overarching theme of our episode this week is that being clear is actually really kind to our dogs, isn't it? It's very confusing when our rules change. As you said, they don't know the difference between having muddy paws or not having muddy paws. We do. We're very aware of it, but they're not.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those topics that has just kind of uh gone under our radar as pet
Hmm.
owners because like we weren't really taught a long time ago that dogs were sentient, that they had this developed cognition and emotional experience the way we now understand that they do.
Like
And
they actually
so
feel stuff and they actually have opinions about stuff.
yes,
Crazy
right. I
notion.
mean, isn't that wild? But we
I
used to not
know.
think that.
Wild.
We were just like, oh, they're dumb animatrons or something. Like, it's really weird. Like, looking back on that, like how people actually thought that animals weren't sentient ever. But that has been a part of our culture and
Mhm.
conscience, about dogs. And so, like, I don't think we have intentionally been confusing. I think we've thought we were giving them the clarity that they needed and following kind of best advice over the decades about dogs. But I think the truth is a lot of dogs are super duper confused about a lot of things.
Yeah, if you think about even just simple things like who we let our dogs say hello to, sometimes you can say hello to people, sometimes you can't. Um, can you jump up on somebody? Sometimes I know even with my own dog, I'm not always 100% consistent because some people really like being jumped on. So you're like, oh, okay, well, if they don't mind and it's not a big deal. So there's not really full clarity there. And also, I was thinking about like our moods. Our moods make us not very
Oh
consistent
yeah.
or clear. Like some days we're in the mood to do something, and other days we're like, no, just not down for it today. So it must be
Yeah.
in the poor dog's brain, it must really be incredibly confusing.
Yeah, and actually you're bringing to mind some like weird relationships I've had, both personal relationships and business relationships, like working for someone where you
Yes.
walk in and you're like walking on eggshells because you don't know what you're going to get because
Hmm.
it could be way over here reaction or way over here reaction. And it's really stressful. It's very anxiety provoking to have
Yeah.
that level of unpredictability, especially in relationship. And we get the power in the relationship. We're kind of creating the rules, so to speak, in our human environments. And I think it's really important to realize that they are having that experience. They're also having really different needs and perceptions that we have to appreciate and kind of meet them in the middle on as well.
Yeah. And I think we think that we're being kind because we're being flexible.
Yeah.
We're like, today you get to sit on the couch with me because I'm having a sad day and why not come and hang out with me or something's happened. Whatever the situation is,
Yeah.
we feel like we are being kinder by being more flexible, but actually that flexibility is just makes our behavior feel more random, I think, to our dogs.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is that we can actually have flexibility and variation, right? Just like in relationships, you can say, you know, not today, here's why, or not in this moment, here's
Hmm.
why. And like, it's okay that we have mood changes. Like, we don't need to be like robotically similar in our behavior every day, but we want to really give our dogs as many context cues and as much information and as many discriminators so that they know, like, oh,
You're
what's
definitely going to
that?
get dung on discriminators.
Discriminators. Yeah. When we're talking about behavior with discriminators, we're talking about things that indicate whether something is this or this, right? It gives the dog, any learner. I mean, discriminators is a term we could use for any learner, including people, but like it's kind of like it's one of the reasons that even if I'm going to work on my computer, I work from home, I still get dressed in the morning as a discriminator for myself. Because if I wear my pajamas when I'm sitting at my computer, I'm not going to do the same type of work that I will do if I actually get dressed.
Yeah.
And so just like little things like that, right? Where we figure out like it can be very simple, of course, like red light, green light is a good example of a discriminator,
Yeah.
just literally like knowing that, oh, when it's green, I go, and when it's red, I stop. They're just kind of associations we make about things, but they're really powerful because they tell us what behavior is appropriate next.
It's like how dogs, they know depending on what shoes you're putting on, whether you're going out for a walk or whether they're staying home. They know.
Yeah.
They can tell whether you're putting makeup on. Sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, this one's not for me. That's what happens in my house. It's like, no,
Yeah.
she does
Yeah.
not put any makeup on when we go for a walk. So this one's not for me. I'm staying home.
When I sit down at my desk, right? So the dogs know because again, I work from home. I have to be able to put on an 8 hour day behind that computer. And that
Yeah.
is like I'm not available to them during that time. And so we've made a deal because like and actually this may be fun to talk about in a second, this whole idea of making a deal, but like we have a contract and a term in there about how like when I sit at my desk, I'm gonna need you to bug off for approximately 6 to 8 hours at a time. And that's a lot to ask, right? Now they have a
It
dog
is.
door to a yard and they have all kinds of other things to do, but my deposit in the bank account to make that withdrawal on that ask and be like, I am unavailable to you. I will not interact with you while I'm sitting here is that I give them both a really awesome chew, like the kind of chew bone thing that's going to take them at least 20, 30 minutes when I sit down at my computer every morning so that they're jolly about the whole fact that I've drawn the line. They're like, okay, great, cool. You give me that bone and then I can go do my thing. And then you start on the computer. And then at that point, I don't interact with them anymore. If they come by and are like trying to get my attention, I ignore them.
And so it's a complete red light to them. She is
Yep.
off. It is not happening. We might as well go
Mhm.
and do our own thing. Yeah. And again, it's like it's a pattern thing as well, isn't it? That if we keep doing the same things consistently, they now know they're going to get a treat and you're not going to interact with them for the 6 hours that you need to work. That's just the way it is. And they can go off and make their own fun if they want to.
Yeah, and I think like this is This is why it's so important, like in any relationship, right? Like me and my husband, how we do weekends. We're both really independent people, right? So we're both kind of doing our thing. But we've got these patterns of things that we do together. Like we always have coffee in bed in the morning on a Saturday and we watch an
Oh,
episode of
how
whatever
civil.
series. I know, right?
So civil.
But then we go bug off and we ignore each other for 8 hours and do our own thing, even on the weekends. Like that's kind of how we roll, right? Um, but it's a contract, and like if both of our needs weren't being met, then we would have a problem, and we'd have to kind of move the goalpost and figure that out, right? But
Right.
I think it's helpful to approach relationships with anybody, including our dogs, thinking about it like their needs have to be acknowledged, understood, and met.
Yeah.
Our needs have to be acknowledged, understood, and met. We are in the upper management kind of parental role, like we've talked
Yeah.
about before. So we need to actually author that contract, if you will, but in full acknowledgement of making sure that their needs get met first, that their feelings, their experiences are considered in whatever's happening. But then we have these terms and conditions that we actually stick to rather than being so unpredictable and wishy-washy.
Yeah, it is like a contract, isn't it? And I think what I love about the contract idea is that it's not about the dog or the person actually, or even your husband being right or wrong. It's just what works for that person and what is going to work for that dog. And I remember when you first started family dog mediation and we were talking about all the different ways that we could try and help explain it to the public, that in my head it was just this bridge. So the dog's needs
Mm.
are over here and the person's needs are over here. And how do we, as family dog mediators, build a bridge that helps them both meet somewhere in the middle so that both of
Yeah.
their needs are met? They actually really enjoy life and existence with each other. Nobody feels like they're getting, their nose is being snubbed in any one of these situations. But then when we figure out how to do that, then it does become like a contract, isn't it? It's the terms and conditions, and you can't ask more of your dog. You have to be able to give back your side of the contract as well and make sure that you're meeting their needs. And we should dig into that actually, what the needs might be of like the caller's dog. What is actually happening there?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So, like in that particular situation, I would say that that dog is looking for social contact.
Yeah.
It's really natural for a lot of dogs to want to do social contact resting or sleeping. So that's why a lot of dogs want to kind of, even if they're not like on us, like on our laps, they might want to just lay down where they're up against us, and there's
Yeah.
some type of our bodies having contact while we're resting. It's
That
socially bonding.
I was going to say there is a bonding thing about it, and there is like a regulating. I think we're both co-regulating when we're doing that as well without even realizing it. And as you said, some dogs like to be really up close and personal with you and like want to sleep right on your chest. And other dogs, they're just quite happy to be in the room with you, breathing the same air as you. I've had both kind of dogs, and it's really fun, isn't it, to see how they have really different needs in that.
And those kinds of patterns, especially with like social species, and they're so important for that like affirming of the bonds. Like this is
Yeah.
something that we do together. Like we have we call it the cuddle bench that's down in the yard where I sit with the dogs and hang out and kind of have my
Wait,
own like
I thought you said the cuddle bunch. I thought it was like a
oh,
group.
oh no.
This is the problem with the recording. I need to turn my volume up more. My old lady hearing. We have a cuddle bunch. We just hang out on
Yeah,
Tuesdays
but it is like a cuddle bunch on the cuddle bench
on the
because
cuddle
the
bench.
dogs literally pile on top of me. We'll have to put a picture or
Oh,
something in the show notes for people to
please,
see.
yes.
But they do like, and it's interesting. We actually like did it this morning. The dogs know that I'm going on a trip. I'm leaving for a conference today. And they're like they get a little emotional about it. And it was great because like I wanted them to feel connected with me before I left, but it's hard to manufacture that randomly. But if you're using a part of your environment that has a ritual associated with it, then that like the cuddle bench does, where it's like she'll get up and she'll do the cobbing, the kind of nitpicking thing on my arm and kind of do some grooming, and Prim will lick her face. And so they're kind of bonding too. And it's this oxytocin puddle we're all swimming in together, but like
Lovely.
it's great because it's just a pattern, and those
Yes,
patterns I think are one of the ways we can really affirm the contract, right? Because we all know like dogs aren't reading and writing contracts, right? They're not going to read
exactly.
like line 4B,
Well,
so
some might. There are some of those herding dogs out there. They're like
maybe they are.
5 point B subsection D.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Exactly.
So, what else might this dog be needing? What else could we take care of their needs? We know they want some social bonding time. They might also want like a really comfy place to rest as well. I mean, if you've got wood floors and you've got a couch, I know which one I would be picking if I was a dog.
Mm. And often dogs want to be elevated too, you know. We think
Like
that
the
that's
whippet.
something,
Remember the whippet?
yes, right on the table.
Yeah. So
So
in one
that
of our
could be
previous
part of it too.
episodes, yeah, we had a whippet that wanted to stand on the table. So just being able to get a good, view of the room or maybe out of the window.
Hmm.
Yeah, get a little higher.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I I have not one but two oversized ottomans that match my couch that I didn't need, that I literally bought for dog beds on either side of the couch so that they would be on the higher level at the windows. Because with my LGDs, livestock guardian dogs, like Early being a Great Pyrenees, they like to do that perching, and then they monitor while they're perching and see what's going on outside. So they don't want to lay down low where they can't see out the windows. They want to have that visual vantage point where they can see things.
Yeah, and for some dogs that's really helpful. Like as you said, like the guardian dogs, that's got to be just part of who they are. They have to have that. But then
Yeah.
then you have some of the other dogs that want to get like my Ziggy used to like to get on the back of the couch and just bark at absolutely everybody that was going by. And that was
Mm.
not very good for his little
No.
nervous system. So we had to have a different setup for him. So if you've got a dog like that, letting them get up really high and get really overexcited all the time in your house, if they're driving themselves to distraction, probably not the best um
Right. You may want to put
solution.
a higher bed somewhere away from a window for that dog.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
you know what else I was just thinking about as far as that dog? The caller was describing how the dog was like rubbing, like loved to
Yep.
like get wet and muddy and then use the couch like a towel. And so
Yes.
that's a whole other
Perfect,
need,
right? Just what
right?
you want.
Exactly.
I've got a cream couch in my house.
Oh,
I have no
why?
idea what I don't know. When I moved to England, I was like, oh, the cream one would look so good. And then I bought it, I bought the package that was like £150 to keep it clean for 5 years. So basically, they gave me some stuff to clean it off with, which is unbelievable, by the way. And if I can't get it off myself, they send somebody else. And if
Oh
that
wow.
person can't get it off, then I get a new couch. So that's why I have a cream
Wow.
couch. I thought it was.
That's amazing. That makes
I'll keep
sense.
you posted on how well that's going. But I'll get into my onto my little hack later as well about how I protect my cream couch. But yeah, it's working so far. Let's hope
Yeah.
it's not going to go pear-shaped.
Yeah. Well, so you know, but regardless of what kind of couch you have, if you give your dog if they like doing that, because a lot of dogs like after they get wet and
Love
muddy, they
it.
want to come in and roll around.
Hmm.
So we do a rub down. Like I know not all dogs love the rub down, but like
Yep.
my dogs love it and they get
Hmm.
really into writhing while we're doing it, and we kind of make it a game. So that can also be a good contract, which is like when you're really gross, before you come into the family room, I would like for you to allow me to rub you down and like we'll play this little game. And that can be term 10C, you know, in your contract kind of
Just in
thing,
case
right?
those
Like
herding dogs are listening and
yeah,
they're keeping count.
taking
So,
very careful notes. Yeah.
so Juice is one of the first dogs that has really disliked that. He's got a lot of kind of body sensitivity stuff. He doesn't like to wear a harness, and being rubbed was not a thing for him. But like all dogs, he does like to get dry. So he would run in and want to rub up against my very white couch. So what the deal that I made with him is that when he's really, really wet, I'll put towels into his crate and close him up. It's a soft crate. And so he just uses it like a padded cell. But it actually works out really well because he loves to just bang around in it. I mean, he's going completely wild and just bashing up against the walls, but he comes out really dry. And that's his way of getting his kicks before I'm letting him anywhere, near my
Yeah.
furniture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that I mean that's a good thing for our listeners to be thinking about is like it doesn't have to be one way,
No.
you know. And
It's meeting
and
on
the
the
other
bridge again, isn't it? It's meeting on the bridge. Like
yeah,
we know we want our house not to be destroyed by the really wet dog, and the
yeah,
dog wants to get dry somehow. So how do we meet
yeah,
on the bridge? We're just back
yeah,
to that again.
right. Exactly. Or, you know, maybe there's three things going on: social contact, wanting to get dry, wanting to be on a raised surface, maybe all that stuff's going on. So then when we're thinking about, okay, how do I meet you halfway coming in your direction on that bridge? It might be, got it. We'll have our little pattern for how you rub down and you get dry whenever you're wet and gross from coming in outside, and I'll make that available.
Yeah.
I will also, and I won't kind of cheat and tell everyone the hack that we're going to share at the end, but there's a way that we can kind of help them understand how to sit with us on the couch, even if they were just outside in the mud and the water, where we're still protecting that lovely cream sofa of yours.
Yeah.
And then we can also figure out how to give them a raised surface if that's important to them as well, even if that's something that is always available to them, so that they know that, like, I always have my spot that's acceptable regardless of how disgusting I am. But if I want to sit with you, there might be a discriminator.
Yeah. And I think that all of these boundaries, right, that we're putting in place, we're allowed to do that. I think they actually are really kind for dogs, to
They
go back to
are.
that kindness idea. But I think it actually helps them feel safe when we're consistent with what we're saying. So they know
Yeah.
exactly where they stand all the time. We're fulfilling our piece in the contract. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's more money in that bank account again. And I know we've talked about that over and over again, but we become dependable, don't we?
Yeah, and it's funny because actually, like, if you want your dog to stop listening to you, be super unpredictable, because they'll just be like, whatever. You never
Right.
know with that one, you know what I mean? And then they're
Yeah.
losing that respect for us. We
You
haven't
never
put
know
that
with
money in
that
the bank
one.
account. Yeah.
She's a wild card.
Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah, she's never, she's coming or going. I don't know, right? But
Yeah.
if you think about like that whole social idea of safety in a social group for a social species, it gets established through the behavior of that individual. But if they're not on it, if they're not intelligent, making good decisions, situationally aware, and then dependable, they're not going to be wearing that hat for very long in a social group. So, like, if you want your dog to listen to you, learn to become someone worth listening to.
Yep. It's the same in a friendship, isn't it? If you were telling
Yeah.
somebody something really important to you, and sometimes they shared it with everybody, and other times they
Oh my
didn't,
gosh. Yeah.
we just wouldn't be friends, would you? You wouldn't have that trust in them. And I think, I mean, again, we are circling a lot of the same concepts, but trust and safety are everything in relationships.
Mm.
And
Yeah, and
dogs
we
need
forget
it
that
as much as we do.
right. We're not just a dog owner and we train our
No.
dog to do what we say. That's such a strange, antiquated concept. Again, that they're just supposed to be our obedient little minions that we're barking orders at with commands.
Yeah.
That's not a relationship. They're a social animal. We're a social animal. We're cohabitating together in the 21st century in a very complicated situation for all of us.
Yeah.
And if we go to the basics, it's going to keep us grounded and the most successful, remembering that they are sentient, they do have these experiences, and they are a social animal, and we are the one responsible for them. So it's our job to kind of put that hat on and take up that role and be clear about these things and have them be reasonable and have them make sense without moving that goalpost all the time.
Yeah, because again, it's not the dog is broken. Our world is a little bit crazy for them. We've talked again about street dogs before, but if they were living outside and they were wet, they'd be rubbing up against anything, wouldn't they?
Yes.
Nobody would
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
These
It
are
doesn't, right. A
our
lot of
rules.
these things don't make sense to them, right? We forget that
No.
those are human kind of social structures that make no sense at all to dogs.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? Like, being disgusting is amazing. Again, that's why we did a whole episode on poo.
Yeah.
They thought that was fabulous and they don't understand why that
Right.
would be a problem with that cream sofa of yours, you know?
Right. It's always good to go back to that, isn't it? Like as the kind of the street dog or what dogs would naturally do in their environment, to remind ourselves just how weird of a position we're putting dogs in. And then
Yeah.
that's how you can reaffirm that thing, that they're not broken and we need to meet somewhere on the bridge.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And I think like one other thing I wanted to just share with everybody is because we were just talking about obedience, right? And about this whole concept of how like we've been taught that you control what your dog is doing by this half a dozen commands that they learn in an obedience class, and you're going to just give them those instructions depending on what they're doing. So maybe in the case of the couch, it would be, no, off, right? Like that would be another command that's commonly taught in those kinds of programs. Or we might say stay when the dog comes up to the couch. But I just want to remind people that like commands don't give dogs information. Like if you went into work and your boss didn't explain what was going on, but you walk in the door and they're like, sit down. Okay, why?
You'd poop
Is the
your
first
pants
thing
for
you
a
think.
start. I would be so
I know.
scared. I'd be like,
I
what did
know,
I
me
do?
too.
I'd be
What's
like, what
happening?
happened?
All
Yeah.
right, there's got to be a story behind this. And then if he's like, come here, sit down again. You'd be like, oh, right. Like, but you don't know. It's not giving you any information. And I think
And to
because
be
we didn't
fair,
realize.
their voice could be scary because we've been taught again to say this in a very
Yes.
stern voice. So they might think I'm
Yes.
really in trouble. What on earth has just happened? So it's
Oh
not
my
only a
gosh, that's
weird
such a good
thing,
point.
but we're
Be-
saying it in a mean way as well. We don't intend to be mean. I don't think people just feel like they have to, or we've been taught that we have to be commanding and,
we-
say it assertively.
that's what people have said is leadership and clarity.
Yeah.
You have to be firm, and it's like
Yeah.
you can be clear and be a fabulous upper manager without ever raising your voice and getting firm, like, or narrowing your eyes at somebody. You don't have to do that. You just want to be clear. So some context and information would help the dog a lot. So the first thing we can do is use patterns to deal with behavior as opposed to commands, right? Service dog training taught me that in spades. Like, once you taught the service dogs a pattern of, like, when you go into a restaurant, you walk in, you lay down under the table, and you stay in a down until we leave the restaurant. And they learn a very simple pattern of, when I'm sitting, you lay down until I stand up. When that discriminator, that service dog vest is on, the dog knows all the rules are different. I'm not allowed to meet other people or other dogs, and I have to follow these other patterns that are also associated with that vest. And it's amazing because, like, after a few months of training, the service dogs, you don't need to remind them anything. They just are on autopilot. So that's another reason why, if we create these contracts and we do it the same way every time, the dogs just go through the motions because it's just what we do. As long as their needs are met, they tend to not fight you on the terms. But if they're fighting you on the terms, it might indicate that their needs are not met.
Yeah, that's true. Or there's not clarity in the terms as well.
That's right.
Like, are we
Yes.
actually being clear about what we're saying? I love the
Yeah.
pattern thing because it really does, it helps dogs to think for themselves as well. And if you think about, let's say you're training a service dog and you want the dog to lay down while maybe somebody's eating at a restaurant, you've got to really expect that dog to hold a 30-minute stay. And
Or
in
an hour
training
in some
terms, or
cases. Yeah.
and yes, even longer. But when
Yeah.
they just understand the context of, when I'm sitting, you're lying down, there's really no more information that needs to be filled in for the dog for them to understand that. Actually, you made me think, in the dial method workbook, this was so important to me because I thought it was something that was missing in how people usually train their dog, is to think about all of the common things that we do as humans, blocks of time in our day, whether it's sitting at the computer working, whether it's cooking, whether it's kids coming home and grabbing a snack or doing homework, or somebody coming to the door, and thinking about what we do, the humans, and then figuring out what we would like the dog to do at that same time. Because half of the problem is that we don't even know what we want the dog to do. We don't
Right.
have a clear plan. When we know
Yeah.
exactly what we want and we're really mindful and intentional about it, then we can say to the dog, this is actually what I want you to do. And then they're like,
Yeah.
okay. They just don't always know. Sometimes we're as clear as mud about with what our intentions are.
Yeah. And I think, is if we've checked off the box and we know that the dog's needs have been met across the board, then we will have to then look at what we're doing in terms of the clarity that we're providing, and between the patterns, between using discriminators,
Discriminators.
but
Yeah.
between using language, right? Like, this is another place where the Mr. Rogers hack comes in handy. And, we've always thought, like, dogs don't understand words other than those magic half a dozen terms they learn in obedience school. And that's not true at all. They have incredible receptive language ability, as we've talked about on prior episodes as well. And so filling in the blanks with, like, a certain term or a certain phrase that you use at all of those moments when we're going into plan, you know, that we do for, say, when the kids come home from school or when you're getting them ready in the morning. Like, if you have a plan and you use the power of those patterns and the discriminators and the phrasing, and you're doing the same thing every time, just like a young child would be able to figure that out and put those pieces together, realizing dogs cognitively are very similar to toddlers. They're going to do that math, and then they're going to be able to just get on board with, like, that autopilot response. And it's so much easier for them. It's not stressful for you, it's not stressful for them. It's just what we do.
Yep, makes sense. It all makes sense. The power of language, it's just so incredibly underutilized. If there's one thing when you listen to this podcast, that you walk away with, we would love you to start thinking about really simple words and phrases that you can introduce to your dog that you say over and over again to help give some context to them, because it just changes the way you live with your dog. It's really do it as an experiment, if nothing else, and just see what changes, because it's so interesting. I
Oh,
think
can I give just a fun one that people can try? This is one of the ones that dogs pick up on the fastest. Every time your dog goes to the window, say, "What are you looking at out the window? What do you see out the window?" Right? So like, and obviously if you have a dog barking out the window, you may not want to do this, but like it's a really
yeah,
fun one to
no,
realize
don't
how
say this to
quickly.
Ziggy.
Right. Right. You can say it to Early and you can say it to
Yeah,
Prim. Um,
yeah.
but so when they're looking out the window, if you just name it, within a week, you could say to them, "I see something out the window," and the dog will walk over to the window. It'll blow your mind. Like the kind of stuff that they can put together. It's amazing.
I do the same with noses, actually, because Juice is not really in the house that I live in now. He can't really see out the windows very easily. But sniffing, I do exactly the same with sniffing. So when we're on our walk, he'll stop and sniff something, and I'll say, "Oh, what are you sniffing? What are you sniffing?" And then he'll look around at me, like, "Oh, I'm sniffing this bit of wee that I smell on this branch over here, actually." And then, but now that's turned into when he's looking for me to get a ball out of my pocket, which I don't have. I'm like, "Go sniffies." Go sniffies. And then
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, okay, no problem. I'm going to go around."
Yeah.
Oh, did you
Yeah,
look who says
he
I
says, "Here I
want to
come.
go sniffies. You want to
What
go
am I sniffing?"
sniffies. I know. Was I talking about you? I
You're
was.
eavesdropping
I
again, Juice.
was. He's always eavesdropping.
Yeah.
I didn't bring his little chair to sit next to me today, so he's just been lying on his bed. But yes, that's the way that he understands to go sniffing. And it took like I didn't do it intentionally. I was just talking to him on my walk. So they are listening.
Yep.
They are listening. Right. Should we get to the hack? I feel like we're
Yes,
at
let's
this
do it.
place where we could give our caller a sneaky little hack to help her get out of this, land of confusion and using the couch as a dog towel.
Yeah, and
So,
it'll actually touch on all the things we were just talking about in terms of pattern,
patterns,
discriminator, and
discriminators, and Mr.
language.
Rogers. Yes,
Yes. Yeah.
exactly. And by the way, for anybody listening in England, Mr. Rogers is an American character who I didn't really know either. Actually, Kim, can you explain who he is? Because I really don't actually know who he is.
Yeah, so just real quick, Mr. Rogers was a really amazing human being that had a kids show that I watched when I was growing up. So it was around like in the 70s and 80s and stuff. And he was so groundbreaking because he treated kids like people instead of silly children that don't understand what's going on and don't have feelings and thoughts and questions and stuff. So he related to them with the same kind of respect that you would give an adult, and was very honest with them about things and very like validating of their experience. So kind of like building a bridge between adults and kids in that way that we're trying to do with dogs. And he just talked to them and he listened to them on their level, and he really was quite groundbreaking for that and his kindness to people in general.
Oh, go Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers. He was the one
Yeah.
who always said, "Look for the helpers," wasn't he?
Look for the
And
helpers.
if there's
Yeah.
ever like a really big disaster or a really sad event that happens, you feel overwhelmingly sad. And he would always say, "Look for the helpers." And it really reminds you of the amazing humanity, people's
Yeah.
great banding together. And yeah, I always love that. As I say, we didn't grow up with him, so good that we're setting some context. So the hack for today is the blanket rule hack. And I know both of us use this because we both have couches that we'd like to keep for a few more years. But we're going to use this idea of a discriminator. So if you have a really nice chunky blanket, something that's really clear that it is on your couch, then you can have the rule with your dog that when it's on the couch, they are allowed on the couch. If the blanket is not on the couch, it's a red light and they are not allowed on the couch. So it could be a simple pause as well for them to just come and look and check. I actually like to have a little bit of not dogs flying from the ground straight onto the couch. Just that's my own personal thing. So a little pause and for me to say, yes, the blanket's up you get. And then if the blanket's gone, sorry, honey, it's bed
Yeah.
on the floor. It's
Yep.
so
And when
easy.
you're teaching it to them, if you just put a little phrase with it, like,
Yep.
"Oh, here's your blanket. Your blanket's on the couch. Do you want to
Yep.
come sit up on the couch? Look, it's your
Yep.
blanket." And you make a big thing about it and you reward them and love on them. It can even help to kind of, especially if they already have a bad habit of being on the couch, kind of leave the blankets mostly on the couch, right? So they're not
Mhm.
failing more than they are succeeding when you're
Yep.
introducing this. And then you would take it off and be like, "Oh, oh, oh. there's no
Yeah.
blanket. You can't, you have to wait, just be very clear about
Yeah.
it, and maybe put the blanket on the floor or on another piece of furniture that's okay for them to sit on. But like, you're getting them to pay attention to, is the blanket there? Yes, green light. And you can again use phrases about that. The blanket is the discriminator, and then you're making a pattern out of it. So having that be like where you cuddle every night. And then again, don't be thinking you're doing a favor to your dog if you don't have the blanket on the couch and they jump up and you're like, oh, whatever, it's fine, just sit with me and cuddle. Because now we're being super confusing, and then we're clear as mud again.
Exactly. And I love it because you can just say, as you said it, you don't have to use the stern voice. You can just be like, sorry, no blanket if the
Mhm.
blanket's not there, or here's your blanket down here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
easy, isn't it? It's not really rocket science, but I think we've been kind of led a little astray that we have to make this much more hard work than it is.
Yeah. And again, because so many dogs are having behavior problems that are due to all those welfare problems that we've been talking about, I think when we're dealing with so much behavior that we're struggling with as evidence of what our dogs are struggling with, then we can feel like, oh, I have to do more to control them. Like, so we just tighten the reins more and we get more kind of inhibiting and micromanaging. And it's the opposite direction. It's really like loosening up, going out of our way, though, to meet those dog needs, and then being simpler, like, kind of
Yeah.
like going back to basics in terms of like making patterns, saying the same phrases.
Yep. In fact, I had many calls about stuff like this, dogs getting on couches, because it was very frustrating to families with kids where they want their kids to be on the couch, but they don't want the dog to be on the couch. Um, but I think also where it's very difficult for the public, if you're not a dog trainer and you don't really have any interest in becoming a dog trainer, the skill set of teaching your dog to be off the couch is difficult
Mhm.
to get the timing right, and for the dog to understand the training piece of it. When you could actually just have this very clear rule in your head: when there's the blanket on the couch, you're allowed on, and when there's
Mhm.
not, it just simplifies everything, not just for the dog, but also for the humans as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so post-it pivot time. We're at the end of the show now. So coming back to this idea of clear being kind, what can you do in this week that is so small that you can write it on a post-it note and change a little something about the way that you're showing up for your dog and see what an impact that can have on your relationship together? So could it be that you need to be much more clear on your boundaries? So, what you are going to allow your dog to do and what you're not going to allow your dog to do. Then, what patterns can you put in place to make sure that you're making it easy for your dog to understand what you would like them to do? And maybe you could use discriminators. We were talking about, this is our word for the week, isn't it? We've said this over and over again now. So, the red light, green light concept. And then also remembering to use some language. Maybe you could throw something in there again to make the message even clearer for your dog about what your expectations are. And not just with your words, but with your face, with your body, all of those things, making sure that they're lining up so that it's super clear exactly what your intentions are for your dog. So you
Yeah.
write that down on a post-it note, you stick it on your fridge, you make the changes, and then tell us how it's going. We'd love to know. And if you're not near a post-it note right now, at least say it out loud to yourself and you'll be like, this is what I'm going to do. And then when you get home, you can do that. What's yours? Are you going to have one this week?
Yes, actually, I do have a post-it for the week. So for me, telling on myself about the importance of being clear and consistent. Um, my kryptonite is early doing this really adorable thing when I'm at my desk. And she, bless her heart, she only does it at the end of the day when like she's basically asking, are you done on the computer yet? So it starts maybe around 3:30 or 4.
What she's actually
Um,
doing is this: please, can you be done?
right, can you be
Please, can you
done?
be done?
Like, because you've been on this
Is
thing for
it
like 6 or
now?
8 hours. Yeah.
Yes.
And so let's say I'm not done and I
Right.
have to be on the computer for another hour. Then I should be very clear and just be like, oh, no, I'm working, which I do some of the time. But she does this thing that's my kryptonite, where she cocks her head and she holds up one paw and with these little Bambi eyes. And I am helpless in the face of it, but it is not doing her a favor when I'm like, oh, I know I love you, but I'm still working. And blah. It's ambiguous when I do that. And it's confusing. It's better if I just fight the urge to respond to the adorable behavior. And I go, no, I'm just still working. All done. Go lay down. And then she will. But it's so hard.
Can I take yours? I want
Yeah.
to take yours too because also have exactly the same thing. It's like
Really?
this really sad, pathetic, and intense stare like this. Please, can you be done? I really would
Yeah.
love to do something with you, and I've been so good. And it's very
Yes.
tempting to just be like,
Yeah.
I know you have been good, and I'm really sorry that I have to do this and fill in the blank. Um,
Yes. It's so
but it
hard.
isn't clear. I know. That's why
I know.
they have us by the heartstrings in a major way.
I know. Once I'm in the zone, they leave me alone. But if on either end, they're like, we
The
really, okay,
gray
are you
area.
really? It's the gray area.
Actually,
Yeah.
and then
And I have to
we've just
fight the
proved
urge.
exactly well, we've proved exactly what we were talking about. Anytime they think there's a gray area, then they may push
Yes,
boundaries or they might just be like,
exactly.
yeah, they're trying to renegotiate their terms and conditions.
Yeah, no, exactly. And honestly, if we're being gray about the terms and conditions, why wouldn't they
Why
ask
not?
questions about the
Smart
terms and
dogs.
conditions? Right. Is it here? Are you
Exactly.
sure? Maybe we could move that goalpost a little bit over here and we could have an extra hour in the morning that we hang out together when you're not paying attention to those
Exactly.
stupid screens. Yeah,
Oh, you gotta love them.
I do.
Okay, let's wrap it up. And also, we are going to take a small hiatus. We have been really battling with some very interesting technical issues. So we're going to regroup, get ourselves together, and we have an idea for a very special mini series that will be coming to you at some point soon in the near future. So please keep in touch. We would love your comments. We would love you still to tell us how you're doing and all about your post-it pivots and what impact they're making on your life. And we will see you very shortly.
Sounds great for round two.
Yes. And remember, until we meet again, you are not broken.
It's your dog.
I
We
can't
couldn't
say
even
it.
do it.
And do you know
Hold
why it
on.
is? It's because I feel broken. That's what it is. All the
You're
tech
like,
issues have
I'm
got to me.
broken.
And I'm going to leave this in, by the way, because that is the reality. I cannot finish this show without saying that line. Okay. And remember, your dog is not broken.
And neither are you.